Nightmares, warnings from the subconscious. We've all had nightmares, but what do they really mean? Why do we experience terrifying dreams? Do they carry psychological messages? Nightmares reveal the darker side of the subconscious, where our deepest fears and unresolved pain reside. They're not just scary. They leave a lasting impact, making them hard to forget. The fear, anxiety, or distress they create can stay with us for a lifetime. Many scientists view nightmares as negative experiences to be treated with medication or therapy. However, this overlooks an important truth. Nightmares happen for a reason. They're not just the mind's reaction to stress or past trauma. They're warning signals, alerting us to unresolved issues. Nightmares force us to confront inner conflicts we might otherwise ignore. Like a wake-up call, they shock us into recognizing psychological dangers we may have been avoiding. If we simply try to forget them without understanding their meaning, we might miss an opportunity for healing and personal growth. Common nightmare motifs in dreams. Certain nightmare motifs, like falling, being late for an exam, missing a flight, or encountering terrifying creatures, are common across cultures. These dreams often reflect stress, fear, or everyday concerns. While these themes are widespread, every dream is unique and shaped by personal experiences and the subconscious mind. Lilith, a mythological figure. Lilith, found in Jewish mythology and ancient Mesopotamian traditions, is often linked to darkness and mysterious dreams. She is said to be Adam's first wife, but after leaving the Garden of Eden, she became a wandering spirit, symbolizing ancient fears. In later folklore, she is associated with the succubus figure. These myths reflect how ancient cultures interpreted dreams and fear. Dreams and modern psychology. In psychology, nightmares are seen as the subconscious expressing internal conflicts. They may help individuals process anxiety and emotional stress. Regular nightmares could indicate underlying pressures, and understanding them can improve emotional and mental well-being. The origins and legends of nightmares. The word mare in nightmare doesn't refer to a female horse, but rather an Anglo-Saxon term for a creature, an old witch, goblin, or demon, believed to sit on people's chests during sleep, causing nightmares. In Old Norse, it was known as Mara. The prefix night was added to emphasize that these beings typically visit at night. In Danish and Norwegian, nightmare translates to mare ride, while in Swedish, it's mare dream. This phenomenon has been recorded from ancient times to the present across various cultures. Today, it is known as sleep paralysis, distinct from nightmares in that the person is awake but unable to move or speak. It usually happens during the process of waking up or falling asleep, and the person experiences visual and auditory hallucinations, often feeling intense fear and anxiety. People suffering from sleep paralysis may see threatening creatures and feel pressure on their chest, making breathing difficult and potentially leading to suffocation. In the 13th century Ynglinga saga of Norse mythology, King Vanlandi, a great warrior, traveled far and wide. He promised to return after 3 winters, but it was not until 10 winters later that he came back. His wife hired a witch to cast a spell, either bringing him back or causing his death. The king wanted to return to his wife, but his friends and advisors forbade it, believing it was the result of magic. Later, he grew sleepy and said that the Mara was sitting on him. When his soldiers held his head, the Mara stepped on his feet, nearly breaking them. Then, they held his legs while the Mara pressed his head down until he passed away. In Germany, this evil creature is often called Alp, a term related to the English word elf. In folklore, Alp and Mara would visit people's rooms at night to cause nightmares. Even if windows and doors were tightly shut and locked, they could still slip in through the smallest of cracks, like keyholes, something they enjoyed. In many stories, a man is repeatedly ridden by the Mara at night and tortured by it. One morning, he decides to drill a hole in his door, sealing all cracks, and creates a stick that fits the hole. He knows the Mara can enter through a tiny opening, but cannot escape if all entrances are blocked. He then asks a close friend to sleep with him and instructs him to insert the stick into the hole whenever he groans, hoping to catch the Mara. The next morning, a beautiful, naked woman is found in his room. However, the man doesn't know that capturing the Mara means he must marry her. They have children and live happily together. One day, the man tells her about the hole she came through and removes the stick. She immediately flies out of the hole and never returns. Various charms, prayers, or magic were also used to ward off the Mara. The use of protective symbols during sleep is a common theme throughout history. In Japanese mythology, Baku, the dream eater, is a spirit believed to devour bad dreams. Baku is often depicted as a strange creature, combining parts of different animals. After waking from a nightmare, people would call on Baku to protect them by saying, "Eat, oh Baku, eat my bad dream." One could also call on Baku before sleeping to avoid nightmares. However, people had to be cautious. If Baku was still hungry after eating the nightmares, it would continue eating the person's hopes and dreams. This would lead the person to live a hollow, meaningless life. Non-REM sleep, night terrors. During sleep, the brain goes through different cycles, non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Stage 1 of non-REM sleep is when we start to fall asleep, often experiencing sudden jolts or the sensation of falling. Stage 2 is light sleep, and Stage 3 is deep sleep, which is when we are more likely to experience sleep disorders like sleepwalking and night terrors. Night terrors are different from nightmares because they occur when someone wakes up in a panic, often screaming, crying, or trying to escape. Those experiencing night terrors may feel short of breath, sweat, and have no memory of the event itself. REM sleep, nightmares. During REM sleep, the brain is highly active, and the body becomes paralyzed to prevent us from physically acting out our dreams. This is the stage where most nightmares occur. Adults typically experience 90 to 120 minutes of REM sleep each night. Children tend to have more nightmares because they are closer to their subconscious than adults, and creatures under the bed may feel very real to them. The nightmare in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. The main character, Raskolnikov, a financially struggling student, faces deep psychological torment and complex moral dilemmas. His name, derived from the Russian word schism, reflects the internal conflict he grapples with. Raskolnikov contemplates robbing and killing Alyona Ivanova, a greedy and cruel pawnbroker. He decides to practice for the crime by visiting the pawn shop, bringing an old watch to exchange for a few rubles. Later, he goes to a tavern and meets Marmeladov, a sorrowful drunkard sharing the tragic story of his life. After helping Marmeladov home, Raskolnikov witnesses the brutal beating of a child by Marmeladov's wife, who suffers from tuberculosis. The following day, Raskolnikov receives a long letter from his mother, which fills him with guilt. His mother writes that his sister has agreed to marry a man she doesn't love, just to support Raskolnikov's education. Overwhelmed by the letter, he seeks refuge in a drink at a tavern, trying to ease the tension. On his way back, feeling exhausted, he finds a place to rest and falls asleep. In his dream, he returns to his childhood and witnesses a haunting scene. In the dream, he sees himself as a child walking with his father at an outdoor gathering. A weak horse is unable to pull a heavy cart, and drunken men try to force it to work. When the horse can't pull the cart, they begin to beat it. Distressed, the child runs forward to stop the cruelty, but no one listens. Eventually, the horse is beaten to death. With tears streaming down his face, the child embraces the dead horse's head, expressing his pain and outrage. The father tries to stop him, explaining that the drunken men don't realize the cruelty they've inflicted. When Raskolnikov wakes up, he is horrified and haunted by the nightmare. He wonders if he could truly carry out the terrible act he had been planning and decides to abandon his wicked intentions. However, after struggling with his obsession, he ultimately commits the crime, paying a heavy price for his actions. Note: this story is part of Fyodor Dostoevsky's famous literary work, which profoundly explores the inner struggle of a man torn between his conscience and wrong decisions. Raskolnikov's nightmare not only reflects his suffering but also serves as a warning about the severe consequences of wrongful actions in life. Nightmares from Fever and Franz Kafka. Nightmares often revolve around themes such as distorted spaces, danger, and illness. The works of Franz Kafka are a prime example of the nightmarish atmosphere. In The Trial, Joseph K. wakes up to find himself arrested without knowing why. He is charged with an unclear crime and must navigate a complex bureaucratic system. In the metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa wakes up to discover that he is transformed into a giant insect, symbolizing profound alienation as his family reacts with confusion and disgust, yet still hopes he retains his sanity. Nightmares after trauma and recurring nightmares. Many people experience nightmares due to trauma, particularly those with PTSD. These nightmares replay the traumatic event, often more horrifying than the original experience. They can sometimes lead to substance abuse. Therapy that helps reduce stress and document the nightmares may aid in emotional healing. Recurring nightmares are common, especially in youth, and they tend to cease once the individual understands the message behind them. Prophetic nightmares. One of the strangest types of dreams is the prophetic nightmare, where individuals experience terrifying images that later come true, as if they've glimpsed the future. These dreams are rare and can only be confirmed as prophetic once the event occurs. In synchronicity, an acausal connecting principle, Carl Jung delves into meaningful coincidences, events so interconnected that they defy statistical probabilities. These events are called synchronities, where inner life, dreams, visions, moods, etc., aligns with outer life. Jung wrote about a prophetic vision he experienced. "I saw golden waves, debris swimming, and the death of thousands. 2 weeks later, the vision returned, more intense, and an inner voice said, 'Look, it's really going to happen. You cannot doubt this.'" Shortly after, World War I broke out. Carl Jung and the Meaning of Dreams. Jung didn't write much about nightmares, but according to his theory, dreams are spontaneous products of the unconscious and are not under the control of the conscious mind. He believed that dreams help us recognize gaps in our conscious life and offer ways to address them. Jung also emphasized that dreams are not only symbols of personal emotions, but also reflect unconscious archetypes shared by all of us. Big dreams, which are less personally relevant and often carry a sense of the mysterious or horrific, may signal major changes in one's psyche or life. Dreams aren't always easy to decode, and it can take time to fully grasp their meaning. Jung believed that dreams serve as a psychological self-portrait, offering profound insights into the self and the psychological processes of each individual. Darkness and nightmares. Nightmares can be a very dramatic form of the unconscious. Some correct element gradually becomes clear, threatening the ego. This new content may appear as an intruder or attacker, as in the following dream. Late at night, I'm home alone. I think I hear a man trying to break into the house, and I panic. I hear him trying to open the door, but it's locked. Fear spreads throughout my body, and I run to hide under the bed. I realize he's found an unlocked window, and I wake up in a state of panic. In this nightmare, an unknown aspect of the psyche is threatening the dreamer. Nightmares are especially valuable in clearly indicating the ego's ability to confront threatening unconscious content. In the dream, the dreamer faces what Jung called the shadow, where repressed contents are stored, primarily existing in the personal unconscious. A common theme in nightmares is being chased by an ambiguous figure or a monster, which can be compared to the ancient fear of being hunted by a predator. Often, when facing the shadow, hostility will transform into friendliness, or a monster may take on human form, carrying an important and urgent message that needs to be conveyed through psychological awareness. Therefore, one should confront their fears, whether in the nightmare itself or in real life. We can never escape the shadow. It always seems to know where we are. This is because we are running from some aspect of ourselves. Every person has a dark side, and by ignoring it, we only give it more power to control us, much like in the strange tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, leading to psychological fragmentation. When we wear a personality that only includes our good side and forget the negative, it creates a one-sided view, repressing negative emotions, which leads to neuroses and psychological projection. This causes us to lose the opportunity to become whole. Health comes from following the natural path and being true to ourselves. Nightmares are often symbolic of neurosis. People who frequently experience nightmares may have many unresolved psychological conflicts and issues in their lives. On the archetypal level, nightmares represent the negative side of the Great Mother archetype. The devouring mother archetype. The terrible mother or devouring mother archetype is the source of many nightmare experiences. Jungian analyst Eric Newman suggested that the terrible mother symbolizes the unconscious, with its dark side often manifesting as a monster, like a witch or vampire in myths and nightmares. This darker aspect of the feminine represents death, destruction, and helplessness. Regressing into the devouring mother archetype symbolizes a return to helplessness, whereas advancing toward the great mother brings insight and life. To resolve nightmares, it's necessary to bring unconscious content into conscious awareness. Active imagination. During difficult times, Jung developed the method of active imagination to confront the unconscious while in a conscious state. This technique helps resolve deep psychological issues and makes dreams clearer. When faced with nightmares, you can use this method to continue the story of the dream and work through the problem. Jung also noticed that using active imagination significantly reduced nightmares and allowed issues to be addressed more directly. Lucid dreaming. Another technique for accessing unconscious content is lucid dreaming, which occurs when we dream and realize that we are dreaming. A lucid dreamer can move within the dream, even control the environment, interact with dream characters, and question their purpose. This technique can also be used to treat nightmares. Lucid dreams can happen unintentionally when the dreamer notices something irrational. However, there are ways to increase the likelihood of having a lucid dream. Keeping a dream journal is essential, writing or recording your dreams as soon as you wake up. After doing this consistently for a while, you may start to recognize repeating patterns in your dreams. Lucid dreaming can begin from a waking state, wild, where you directly enter the dream from a conscious state. This can be achieved by lying down and remaining still while keeping your mind awake. Over time, you will slip into a half-sleep state until you enter the dream images. You may also experience hypnagogic hallucinations, where you see or hear things that seem real as you transition from wakefulness to sleep. Wild can be combined with the mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, mild, which involves repeating a mantra like, "When I dream, I will realize I'm dreaming." Reality checks are another way to enhance lucid dreaming. Reality checks remind you of the state of things in the real world. In dreams, objects like reading text, checking the time, or looking in the mirror will appear distorted, blurry, or change when you look again. If you pinch your nose, you can still breathe. If you press your finger into your palm, it will go through. Choosing a reality check method and practicing it consistently while awake can help you become lucid in your dreams. Lucid dreaming can provide an opportunity to explore creative boundaries, meet unknown aspects of yourself, and make peace with your shadow, a lifelong process. A woman who frequently dreamed of being chased by a terrifying figure learned about lucid dreaming. When the figure started to chase her, she recognized the scene as familiar and became aware that she was dreaming. With courage, she turned to face the chaser and shouted, "You can't hurt me." He stopped, looking at her in surprise. For the first time, she saw his beautiful, loving eyes. "Hurt you," he said. "I don't want to hurt you. I've been chasing you to say that I love you." He then extended his hand, and when she touched it, he dissolved into her. She woke up feeling energized, and she felt amazing for days. Not only did it help her face uncomfortable situations better, but it also taught her how to express her feelings when necessary, instead of avoiding or running from such situations as she had before. Creative individuals like musicians, painters, poets, and writers seem to experience nightmares more frequently than others. Nightmares and artists. Artists often have a thin boundary between the unconscious and the outside world, which allows them to connect more deeply with the unconscious. This makes them more susceptible to emotional influences and psychological stress compared to non-artists. Jung wrote, "One must pay a high price for the gift of creativity." However, this doesn't mean that artists are neurotic. Rather, they focus on the unconscious to fuel their creativity. Artists sacrifice their ego to reflect the spirit of their time. Great works of art are the result of time, the world around them, and the currents of thought and action from society. Artists like Zdzislaw Beksinski and H.R. Geiger let their nightmares influence their work. Beksinski, a self-taught painter, sought to recreate dreams through his artwork, often depicting dark, post-apocalyptic landscapes. Geiger fused human bodies and machinery in his art, reflecting the encroachment of technology into human life. Both of these artists confronted the darkness within the unconscious and transformed it into transformative works of art. They demonstrate that after confronting the darkness, light can once again shine into life. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos.